When my wife Rita was celebrating at the company with her best male friend, I packed my luggage, left the divorce papers behind, and walked out. Before leaving, I couldn't resist leaving a message on WeChat. I'm gone, making room for you. Half an hour later, she called. Jeremy, are you done causing trouble yet? I couldn't help but scoff. I don't need you anymore, and I couldn't care less who you're with. But she was clearly panicking. Chapter 1. On my birthday, I drove my wife to work. Just before I dropped her off, I asked, "It's my birthday today. Come back early. I need to talk to you." She fell silent for a while before finally nodding in agreement. I'd been married to Rita for 3 years. She was a senior executive at a publicly listed company, and I was a part-time designer. I took on projects here and there, earning a decent income, but it was nothing compared to Rita's. As a man, most people would feel the pressure when their wife earned more, but I didn't. I first met Rita when I was 16. It was love at first sight. She was 3 years older than me. When I entered high school, she came back as an outstanding senior to give a speech. Her delicate profile stuck in my mind. Under the sunlight, glowing like a fairy. After the speech, I tried to take a photo with her, but there were so many people I couldn't get close. In a panic, I shouted, "Miss Fairy." She turned and smiled. I quickly snapped a photo. That was the first picture I had of her. I followed her footsteps and got into the same university, becoming her junior. It took 3 years of chasing before she agreed to date me. If it weren't for her family pressuring her to get married, I never would have had the chance to marry her. But after marriage, I realized that some hearts just couldn't be warmed. On my birthday, I ordered a cake and made dinner, waiting for her to come home. But from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., she still hadn't come back. I couldn't hold back anymore and called her, but there was no answer. Just when I couldn't wait any longer, Santiago sent me a video. In the video, Rita was hugging him, laughing together. Her colleagues were around. Everyone seemed happy, and they were popping champagne. Jeremy, Rita closed the deal for the B-City project and is celebrating. Don't spoil the mood. Santiago's message shattered the last bit of hope I had. I should have seen this coming. Rita had always put me last. I didn't reply. I just heated up the food and ate by myself, then lit the candles and blew them out, making a wish. When I was 16, I wished to be with Rita forever. Now, at 26, I wished to let her go, and let myself go too. I had noticed a year ago that Rita's relationship with Santiago was more than just friendship. He was her best male friend. Whenever Rita was tired, Santiago was her first choice. Whenever Rita had a difficult case, Santiago would step in, making things easier for her. At first, I thought Santiago was just her right-hand man, but I didn't expect the way he looked at her to be anything but innocent. Their actions had already crossed the line of normal friendship. I started receiving anonymous messages, and my phone was full of intimate photos of the two of them. The first time I saw them, I panicked and confronted Rita. She seemed annoyed. "Jeremy, it's just a hug. He's my friend. Don't make a scene." I told her to keep her distance from him, even arranging for someone to deliberately hug her just to provoke her. But Rita saw through me and ignored me for a week, showing me with her actions that threatening her wouldn't work. After that, I stopped causing trouble, but secretly, I promised myself that once I reached 100 photos, I'd leave. It wasn't yet 100, but I couldn't take it anymore. Each photo felt like a knife, cutting into me, leaving wounds that bled and blurred. At midnight, Rita still hadn't come home. My birthday had passed, and the things I wanted to say no longer mattered. I packed my bags, left the divorce papers, and left without hesitation. Some things, if you don't do them now, you'll never get the chance. The next morning, I took the earliest flight to the capital, not just for sightseeing, but for something important. Chapter 2. Mr. Liu. The neurosurgery department at Capital Medical University is the best in the country. If you go there, there may still be a chance. That was the doctor's advice. I have a tumor in my brain, and lately, I've been fainting frequently. Sometimes, my vision goes completely black, and I can't see anything. The doctor said the tumor is pressing on my optic nerve, and I could eventually go blind. I'm not ready to die just yet, but the condition is worse than I thought. All I can do now is delay it as much as possible. As for Rita, well, forget it. As soon as I got off the plane, Rita called me. "Jeremy, what's your problem? What's all this about?" Her voice was hoarse and angry. I raised an eyebrow and looked at the clear sky. The weather was perfect, and my mood lifted as well. "Rita, yesterday was my birthday." There was a pause on the other end of the line before she said, "Sorry, I know. You closed the deal for the B-City project. Congratulations." At that moment, I was surprisingly calm. "Sign the papers. I'll be back in a month." To my surprise, Rita didn't get angry. Instead, she said lightly, "If you're in a bad mood, it's good for you to get away for a while. As for the divorce, let's not talk about it." But she had already hung up. I couldn't help but smile bitterly. Immediately, I received a notification from my phone. She had transferred a large sum of money to me, enough for me to live comfortably for a month. Such a pity. I didn't have time anymore. After completing the paperwork at the hospital, I visited my old school. This was my alma mater, the place where I had followed Rita to study at a prestigious university, spending 4 years of my life here. Looking back, it felt like it had only been yesterday. Still the same familiar tree-lined avenue. Walking here, I couldn't help but think of the times when I would create accidental encounters with Rita. Every time, she would smile faintly and say, "Jeremy, we've run into each other 3 times today. Do you have something you want to tell me?" I would blush and stutter. Do you like spare ribs? I'll cook for you." Having seen so many flowers and luxury goods, Rita was surprised that I would cook for her. 1 serving of sweet and sour spare ribs, and I won her over. Later, it was during a meal that we made our relationship official. She wiped her mouth and asked, "Want to try?" Suddenly, my head throbbed with pain, and I crouched down. The pain spread from my head, and my vision went black again. I quickly took 2 pills, and it took a long time for the pain to subside. Then, I received another message on my phone. It was from that same number. "You think leaving won't solve anything, Jeremy? Give up." This was the first message I'd received since the photos. "Looks like he's getting anxious. I don't want her anymore." I blocked the number and finished walking around the campus alone, leaving behind the last bit of nostalgia before heading to the hospital. For the sake of treatment, they shaved my head. Staring at the mirror, I saw a man with a bruised face, and a sour feeling crept into my chest. But the other side didn't give up. Relentlessly, he kept sending me messages. I couldn't take it anymore until he sent me a video. Rita and Santiago were at a bar. Under the dim lights, they were acting very close, holding hands tightly, their smiles painfully obvious. "Rita, this is what you meant by letting me get away for a while. It's just to make it easier for you to have fun." I took a deep breath. Another message came through. "Quit. You're not good enough for her." How amusing. I've already quit. It's just that Rita doesn't seem to be pleased about it. No surprise there. As a senior executive at a publicly listed company, if any scandals about her personal life were exposed, her career would be ruined. Such a pity for this anonymous tipster. Clearly, they hadn't thought this through. No, they did think about it, they just didn't care. Or perhaps they thought I'd endure it and bring it up privately. So they acted recklessly. A fool. Clown. I didn't respond and blocked the number. Chapter 3. When Rita called me, I had just charged hundreds of thousands to her card. Surgery fees and various other expenses added up to quite a lot. The senior doctor looked at me and smiled warmly, saying, "Don't worry, kid, we'll get through this together." My nose tingled, and I nearly cried. From Liangqing to the capital, I was alone. After entering the hospital, the doctors, upon learning I was here by myself, looked at me with pity. They took good care of me. I hadn't expected so much warmth from strangers when I was alone and far from home. And it was at this moment that Rita called. "Jeremy, how are things over there? You've spent so much money. I hope you're feeling better." Her tone was cold, and even through the signal, I could tell she wasn't in a good mood. "What? Feeling guilty now?" "Not at all." Rita paused before saying, "When are you coming back? Mom and Dad keep asking where you are." It had been a week already. I'd done all the things I needed to, and only today had I checked into the hospital, so I certainly wasn't going back. Just then, the voice of a nurse called out, "Bed 28, blood draw. You're at the hospital." I couldn't help but laugh at Rita's question. It seemed she hadn't been home in days. If she had been home, she would have seen my diagnosis report on the coffee table. "I'm feeling a bit off. Came to get checked." "Rita, haven't you been home these days?" I waited for her explanation. As long as she gave me a reasonable one, I would believe her. Rita paused for a moment before responding. "I've been busy lately, staying at the company or with Santiago." It wasn't a question, but a statement, because just then, I received more photos on my phone, time-stamped from last night. Rita was fast asleep, and there was a man holding her. The two of them were hugging tightly, soundly asleep in each other's arms, looking peaceful and content. I couldn't help but sneer. "Have you signed the divorce papers? This 300,000, consider it as part of the asset division." Rita was furious. "Don't you even think about it, Jeremy. What are you causing a fuss over? I've told you a million times. He's just a friend. You've been sitting at home all day. Your brain's probably gone numb. I'm telling you, stop now. Enough already." I wasn't angry at all. "Rita, if one day I die, will you be sad?" "No, Jeremy, come back. We need to talk." I sighed. Why was getting a divorce so complicated? I was about to hang up when Santiago's voice came through. "Rita, is he suspecting me again?" "Ugh, I knew I shouldn't have come back." I said it. "Jeremy's too petty. Don't worry about him. I think he's just bored with his good life." I didn't catch the rest of what they said. I hung up the phone immediately. A dull pain surged in my head, and I fought off the dizziness. I opened WeChat and posted a status, "I'm leaving. Giving you guys space." I tagged Rita and Santiago. "I'm the patient, so let them think I'm petty." Rita had just closed the B-City project. By doing this, I immediately caused the two companies to suspend their collaboration. While waiting for my test results, I went to the small garden behind the hospital, took a few photos of myself, and posted them on my moments. The sun's nice. The view here is great. Almost immediately, Rita called. Jeremy, you're disgusting. You really want to ruin me, don't you? Why don't you just die? Chapter 4. When I heard Rita's curses over the phone, I didn't react right away. I just felt like something inside me snapped. Then, I seemed to hear someone shouting for a doctor, followed by Rita's impatient voice. Jeremy, what are you acting for now? When I woke up again, the doctor was looking at me seriously. Jeremy, where's your family? I don't have any family. Just tell me, I can take it. My parents divorced when I was 10 and remarried each to someone else. Since then, I've been alone. I've gotten used to solitude. And of course, I'm used to handling everything on my own. The doctor's eyes flashed with a hint of sympathy before he said, the test results aren't good. The brain tumor is growing rapidly. With surgery, the survival rate is only about 30%. But if you don't undergo surgery, my heart sank. I looked at him. Tell me, how long do I have left? The doctor pursed his lips. Without intervention, 3 months, or even less. I knew that 3 months might be optimistic. This tumor grew too quickly. The attacks had been becoming more frequent. From dizziness at first to now headaches and even brief moments of blindness. I knew the doctor wasn't exaggerating. Mr. Liu, you're still young. You have to have hope. The doctor's encouragement made me smile faintly. I nodded. I decided to go ahead with the surgery. A 30% chance, it's worth the gamble. When I agreed to the surgery, the doctor quickly developed a plan, and I cooperated fully. However, such a major surgery required a family member's signature. I insisted on signing it myself and wrote a statement that if anything went wrong, I wouldn't hold the hospital responsible. By the time everything was settled, 3 days had passed. The news was spreading like wildfire online, with people discussing my relationship with Rita. Some even posted pictures of Rita and me on our wedding day, along with photos of her with Santiago. A huge uproar ensued. I was in the hospital and rarely checked my phone, but I could see the notifications. I swear, I didn't post those photos, but seeing them still caused a sharp pain in my chest. The next moment, a wave of intense pain hit my head. I couldn't stop myself from curling up, my body arching like a shrimp, cold sweat pouring down my face. In the photos, Rita was revealing a bit of her shoulder, and Santiago was leaning down to rest his head against her neck. The intimacy between them was clear. No one would doubt that they had something going on. I lay there in pain, my face drained of color, and my vision went black. That's when Rita called. I mustered all my strength to lift my hand and answer the phone. Rita's voice rushed in. Are you crazy? Hurry up and come back. Explain yourself right now. The company suspended me because of this. Jeremy, are you happy now? I bit my lip, enduring the pain as I said, Rita, let's get a divorce. If you leave me, then you can be with him openly. Why deceive yourself? You wish, Jeremy, even if you die, you're still mine. She hung up. I couldn't hold on any longer and passed out. When I woke up, the room was quiet. I looked up and realized my vision was blurry. I quickly called for the doctor. Mr. Liu, your condition can't wait. It's progressing rapidly. I fell silent. After a moment, I decided to go ahead with the surgery. No matter what, I wouldn't regret it. When Rita scolded me, I wasn't angry. I just felt a little sad. She hadn't even divorced me yet, and now there was a storm of online abuse. I was being dragged into this mess and becoming the object of sympathy. To be honest, I didn't want so much attention. I just didn't want the person who posted those photos to feel so smug. Half an hour later, I was wheeled into the operating room and given an anesthetic. After that, I don't remember anything. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at my home in C-City. When I saw Rita, I froze. How did I get back? Did the surgery succeed? Rita, Before I could finish, Rita stood up and walked toward me, but she walked right through me. I was stunned and too scared to make a sound. It took me a while to realize she couldn't see me. Chapter 5. I looked at my hands, wanting to touch Rita, but grabbed nothing. In that moment, I was stunned. I had died on the operating table. The tumor was even larger than the doctor had anticipated. During the craniotomy, the pressure caused a blood vessel to rupture, and despite all efforts, the surgery failed. The 30% chance of a miracle didn't happen. I was a little dazed for a moment, and then I remembered that I hadn't yet divorced. What a pity, I thought. Rita would still have to be troubled by it. Because of my WeChat, the netizens went into full investigation mode, causing a lot of trouble for Rita. Just like now, she was impatiently opening the door, letting Santiago in, and the two of them were discussing how to handle things. I didn't want to listen, but as I was about to leave, I heard Santiago say, "Let Jeremy clarify this. It's better than 1,000 words from us. Give him money, whatever conditions he asks for. Otherwise, you won't keep your position. There are plenty of people at the company watching you." Let me clarify, that's not possible. I'm dead. How can I help you? I sat on the sofa, watching Rita try calling me, but my phone remained off. That's right, I'm dead. Who's going to charge my phone? Rita's face grew more and more troubled as she couldn't reach me. Finally, she couldn't hold it in and smashed the phone. Bastard, he did this on purpose. Even now, she was still blaming me, but I was curious, what happened to my diagnosis? Looking around, I couldn't find that piece of paper, but I clearly remembered leaving it on the table when I left. Seeing Rita getting angrier, Santiago patted her shoulder. Rita, why don't we just announce it now? Rita suddenly looked up. What did you say? Only like this can we get through this smoothly. If Jeremy isn't answering, it's clear he doesn't care. Since he's not coming back, Rita interrupted him. No, not now. I watched her, surprised. I had assumed that they'd already crossed the line, and even if they announced it now, I would have believed it. But Rita actually refused. A flicker of shadow passed through Santiago's eyes. Rita, are you in love with him? You only married him to make your parents happy. I was stunned for a moment, then bitterly smiled. Yes, from the very beginning. I knew it was all just a formality. I had pursued Rita for 3 years before she agreed to date me. After graduation, I worried she might want to break up, so I settled in this city, working hard to take on jobs just to give her a grand wedding. On the day I proposed, Rita said, Jeremy, I'm not interested in all that. It's just marriage. We'll just get the license and have a simple meal. Keep it simple. At the time, I felt a little regretful, but when I thought about Rita becoming my wife, I agreed. On the day we registered our marriage, I smiled like a fool, secretly taking a photo of Rita and me and developing it to hide in my photo album. After marriage, I didn't interact much with her parents. We only spoke occasionally, and they'd remind me to take good care of Rita. Now that I was dead, Rita had become a widow. That term didn't sound good, and her family would surely be furious. Rita took a deep breath. Let me think about it. Rita, if you hesitate any longer, the company might give up on you completely. Santiago's words made me curious. Were the netizens really that powerful? Or had they already crossed the moral line and gotten together? Otherwise, why would things have gotten so serious? Rita still insisted. She sent Santiago away, and as soon as she sat down, she received a phone call. I looked and saw my name in the contact details. Wait, I'm dead. How could I be calling her? She answered, and I heard Rita's usual cold tone. Jeremy, are you done messing around yet? Chapter 6. Is this Mr. Liu's partner? This is Capital Hospital. Mr. Liu's surgery failed, and he passed away despite all efforts. Please come and complete the paperwork. I could hear the phone call as well. It seemed that the hospital had found my phone and managed to contact Rita after charging it. I had saved her under the contact name wife, which is probably how they were able to reach her so quickly. When Rita heard the news, her face went pale, and she was frozen for a long time. Are you listening? I'm listening. You're saying he passed away after the surgery? Rita's voice was weak. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds before the voice replied. The tumor spread, and the surgery failed. He said he had no family, so he signed the surgery consent himself. Please come and take him home. After hanging up, Rita was in a daze. She confirmed it wasn't a prank. I watched her face slowly drain of color as she rushed out of the house, and I was pulled along by an invisible force. 3 hours later, Rita finally believed I was dead when she saw my body. The moment she saw the body, I was also shocked. My hair had been shaved off, and there were stitches. Though cleaned, it still looked like an ugly centipede crawling over my head. The anesthetic had been administered during the surgery, and that was the last thing I remembered in this world. I only remembered the doctor encouraging me, Jeremy, hang in there. We'll create a miracle together. I smiled at him, and in just a few seconds, I fell asleep. Before losing consciousness, I thought to myself that dying like this wasn't too bad, at least I wouldn't suffer. Heaven had been kind to me. Though my condition had worsened quickly, I didn't suffer much. I just didn't have the chance to break things off with Rita. Before the surgery, I had already decided that if I didn't die, I would travel and see the world. Forget all the unhappy things. If I died, it didn't matter. I donated all my money. You come into this world with nothing and leave with nothing. Looking at my body under the white cloth, I couldn't help but smile. So this is how I looked, except for the ugly haircut. Everything else wasn't too bad. Rita fainted right then and there. When she woke up, she didn't speak a word. She just quietly changed my clothes, arranged the cremation, completed all the formalities, and then took my ashes home. Seeing her in a daze, I couldn't help but sigh. Rita, forget it. Just scatter me somewhere. I'll travel with the wind. Don't be sad. The surgery had risks. Now that I'm dead, you can be with him. Santiago hadn't accompanied her. He had called several times, but Rita didn't answer. I looked at Rita in this state, puzzled. Was she mourning for me or for herself? I wanted to stay, but I couldn't leave her. I could only follow her back. Rita picked a nice cemetery for me, expensive and spacious. It was all paid for with her money. She bought a double grave, but I thought it was a bit ominous. I would have preferred to be alone, but those who don't pay have no right to be picky. On the day of the burial, Rita was the only one there. Her eyes were red as she remained silent. When we returned home, she lay on the sofa, holding my picture, refusing to eat or drink. Seeing her like this, I couldn't help but laugh. What's the point? I'm dead. Who are you doing this for? I shook my head, unable to understand her. After 3 days, I couldn't stand it anymore and wanted to leave, but every time I got to the door, I was pulled back. Sigh. If she doesn't leave, I can't either. Rita, let's go. I still want to see the world. I stood in front of Rita, shaking my hand, but suddenly, she looked me in the eyes, and I stumbled back in shock. Rita. But she didn't react. Thankfully, she couldn't see me. Chapter 7. Rita rummaged through my things at home. Before leaving, she had packed up all my luggage, and the only thing left was the book in the cabinet. I watched her walk into the study and immediately felt a sense of urgency. But then I thought, well, it's too late now. What was the point of hiding it? Soon, Rita found the book in the cabinet, opened it, and after just a glance, her eyes turned red. March 1st. Rita looked at me. She still remembers me. How wonderful. March 4th. I waited for her on this road for 2 hours, and finally, she agreed to have dinner with me. March 5th. Rita said she was busy and told me not to waste my time. I felt dejected, but I didn't give up. This book was written by me, titled The Days I Spent with Rita. It recorded the little moments between us, dating back to before I went to the capital. November 3rd. I received another photo. This time it was of Rita and Santiago together. They were embracing intimately. I made a decision. When I reach 100 photos, I'll say goodbye to Rita and not stand in the way of her happiness. November 4th. That number sent me 2 more photos, and this time, they were even more explicit. Rita said she would come back for dinner, but instead, she went with Santiago to a Western restaurant. November 8th. I bought Rita a gift, but she never opened it. November 9th. The physical checkup results came out. Not so good. Should I tell her? I watched as Rita cried uncontrollably, holding the book in her arms, sobbing in grief. I sighed and blew a gentle breath toward her. A gust of wind swept through the room, and Rita jumped in surprise, quickly looking around. Is that you, Jeremy? Is that you? She collapsed to the floor, fragile like a glass doll. I shrugged. It's all in the past. I'm not angry anymore. Chapter 8. Santiago came a week later. When he saw Rita in this condition, he was shocked. Why do you look like this? Rita shook her head. What are you doing here? Rita, did you even listen to what I told you last time? This is the company's decision. If you accept it like this, then all these years will be wasted. He brought with him a dismissal letter from the company, along with a demand for compensation. But Rita didn't seem to care. She placed the paper aside and quietly said, "You did this." Santiago froze. What? Rita handed over my phone. I can't understand why he insisted on divorcing me, even leaving to do the surgery alone. Now I get it. It's all because of you, Santiago. You were the one provoking him, sending those photos every day. Right. I remember only you used this number. These photos. Other than you, I can't think of anyone else who could know about them. When Rita saw my phone, her face suddenly darkened. How could she not know? Who wouldn't be angry seeing these photos? She collapsed to the ground. No wonder he asked me to come back early on his birthday, to talk to me. But you forced me to celebrate, saying the birthday was no big deal. Jeremy must have been thoroughly disappointed to leave. Santiago, you disgust me. Santiago remained silent for a long time, then sneered. Rita, you're such a hypocrite. Rita was shocked. She didn't expect him to say this. I, on the other hand, heard this and thought he had a point. You can't always have it both ways. Santiago continued to provoke her. You didn't love him, so what's the point of questioning me now? Don't tell me you're here to fight for him. What you care about is your career, your future. He held her tightly, his face full of excitement. We agreed to fight together. But now, for a man, you're like this. Just look at yourself. He dragged Rita into the bathroom and forced her to look in the mirror. Looking at the woman in the mirror, worn out and exhausted, Rita suddenly laughed bitterly. Santiago, from the very beginning, I knew it was all about mutual use. Jeremy is not a greedy man. Not like you. Santiago froze for a moment, then laughed loudly. Greedy? So that's how you see me, Rita. You, however, act all righteous, but we both know what you did to climb up. Rita turned her head to face him, her eyes filled with fury. You're after the dean's daughter for your future. Don't think I don't know. I just made a wrong step and came back in time. Santiago sneered. We both got what we wanted. Now I'm telling you, your career is what matters most. I just don't want to see you keep sinking like this. Giving up for a man is not worth it. As for the public opinion online, I've hired someone to deal with it. But you still need to issue a statement. If you don't, our project will be cancelled. The company values this cooperation. I hope you'll think of the bigger picture. Rita stared at him. You should go. Santiago refused to leave. Give me a straight answer. I can't afford to miss this opportunity. I've waited so long for this day. If I lose it because of these baseless accusations, I'll have to start all over again. Rita couldn't take it anymore. She raised her hand and slapped him. Baseless. If you didn't provoke him and send him those photos, he would never have sent that WeChat. The slap landed on Santiago's face, and he was completely enraged. He shoved Rita to the ground without hesitation. I was shocked and furious. I rushed forward to stop him, only to realize my hands couldn't reach him. Santiago, how dare you? Looking at Rita on the floor, Santiago's eyes were full of disdain. What? Are you angry now? What about you? Aren't you the one who gave me the illusion, the signals to get close to you? Don't play innocent. Who doesn't know you got to your position because of that? Santiago threw a piece of paper at her. If you don't issue a statement, it's either the fish or the net. He stormed out. I was curious, so I squatted down to look at the paper and suddenly felt a loud buzzing in my head. It was a guarantee letter, in Rita's handwriting. Back in university, Rita had written this guarantee letter after being caught by the legitimate girlfriend of her senior for having an affair with him. I took a few steps back and couldn't help but shake my head. My last bit of sympathy for her vanished. Thinking back, I had pursued her for 3 years and was rejected every time. Then, on the night before my birthday, Rita suddenly came to me, with injuries on her face. When I asked who did this, she said it was an accident. There were rumors in the school at the time. I was so infatuated that I didn't care about them. Plus, Rita agreed to date me, and I impulsively made it official. Now I realize, I was just a backup plan to her after she had been scolded by the senior. She didn't want to deal with his girlfriend's trouble. I was so stupid. Chapter 9. I turned around and entered the bedroom, while Rita's sobs echoed outside. At this moment, all I wanted was to leave. And also, I wanted to change my tombstone. Why hadn't the lawyer arrived yet? I'd paid a lot for this service. Why wasn't it working? I sat alone in the bedroom, the sound of Rita's crying in the living room giving me a headache. I decided to close my eyes and rest. After all, I couldn't leave. These past few days, Rita had been wallowing in despair due to the love triangle, and the public opinion had been rapidly fermenting. Some even dug up the rumor that I was dead, which caused quite a stir. The wife was forced to death. The renowned corporate executive cheated with his best male friend. When this article came out, the internet went wild, with constant insults flooding in. The first target was the official website of Rita's company. Your company is bold, letting such a person be an executive. This woman is clearly promiscuous. Poor man, cheated on and left with a terminal illness. Rita, the old green tea. She was a mistress in school, got beaten up for it, and then found herself a backup. That Santiago isn't any better either. Trashman with trash woman. I looked at the comments on my phone, feeling a strange calm. The feelings I once had when I was young had almost vanished by now. I didn't want to know about Rita and Santiago's past. I just didn't want to stay anymore. When the police arrived, Rita was completely drunk. Her company couldn't reach her, so they called the police. She was taken to the hospital, and I followed her there. Rita had tried to commit suicide at home by taking pills, holding onto my book tightly in her hands. Luckily, she didn't succeed. When she opened her eyes, her pupils contracted, and she suddenly lunged at me. Jeremy, it's you, right? I was startled. Could she see me? He's dead. That voice. I turned around and saw the lawyer. Finally, he had arrived. Miss Rita, I am Mr. Liu's lawyer. I have something to inform you. Upon hearing the lawyer's words, Rita became agitated. Impossible. She collapsed to the ground, her eyes wide with shock. I'm not divorced from him yet. He wants to leave me. Miss Rita, Mr. Liu has already entrusted me with handling the divorce case, but it was delayed. He said, let him go, and let you go too. All the evidence of your improper relationship with Santiago has been gathered. Mr. Liu hopes you won't hold him to the marriage anymore. Rita slumped to the floor, and after a long while, she suddenly started laughing bitterly. Jeremy, really, you've given up on me completely, haven't you? Mr. Liu gave you 100 chances, but you never cherished them. The lawyer was someone I had hired. He was expensive, but worth it. When I first contacted him, he didn't take my case. I had to mortgage all the remaining money from the surgery and this apartment just to ensure that I would no longer have any ties with Rita. Now, looking at it, my choice was right. He was direct and sharp with his words. Rita didn't believe it. She was hysterical, but the lawyer just left a few papers with her and reminded her, this house has already been mortgaged. It will soon be auctioned off. I hope you can pack up and leave. After the lawyer left, Rita stared at the papers, crying and laughing at the same time. Those were my will papers. When I found out that Rita was with Santiago, I knew I couldn't hold on anymore. This marriage, I had always been the one giving. Rita had been indifferent. We had been married for 3 years with no children. She always said her career was more important, and children could wait. I loved children and wanted to have a lively home, but she didn't want that. and I didn't force her. When I saw her go out with Santiago to various events without a care, I felt jealous. She told me not to be so petty. It was all for work. I kept compromising, and they kept taking advantage. Rita didn't want to divorce. If her marriage as a corporate executive fell apart, her career would be affected. All her efforts were for herself. I was just a tool. I hated her, but there was nothing I could do. Luckily, I was sick. Death was my only escape. I watched Rita torment herself with regret and guilt, yet I didn't feel any pain. The lawyer was indeed efficient. Soon, my apartment was auctioned, and Rita was forced to move out. But what I didn't expect was that she went and bought it back. When she moved back in, Rita appeared online, openly admitting to her affair with Santiago, exposing his dark secrets. The two of them started revealing each other's scandals. Rita went into suicide mode and exposed all the industry secrets, dragging the company down with her. Santiago was fired, and the company underwent major changes, suffering huge losses. The netizens watched the drama unfold, occasionally commenting, and in the end, it was clear that Rita was the one at fault. After everything was done, she held my book, caressed my portrait, and swallowed sleeping pills. Before dying, she looked at my figure, and her eyes suddenly lit up, and I turned and floated away. I was free. After Rita died, the lawyer came to handle the matter. Thankfully, she agreed to bury me alone, changed my tombstone, and returned my freedom. I sighed deeply. Rita, in this life, I was just unlucky to meet you. I hope in the next life, I never encounter you again.